scene from Demon Slayer has some of the weirdest sequencing in the show, and I bet you also didn't notice this one as well, and this one, and that one. So, because Demon Slayer is so full of hidden details, I rewatched the entire show again in slow motion for about 50 more times, and found these things almost no one knows about. For example, back in the Mugen train on the very beginning, we see Tanjiro walking, and there's a female passenger sleeping right next to him. If you look closely, you'd see that she is an exact replica of Nezuko. She's even wearing the same clothes. I wonder if it's intentional or not on the part of the animation studio. But the next thing you probably didn't notice is 100% intentional. Like in season 1, when Tanjiro met Muzan for the first time in episode 7. If you really stop and think about this whole amazing, if I might say, scene, one big question comes to mind. Why didn't Muzan kill him on the spot? He went out of his way to turn some random dude into a demon. Why didn't he just inject Tanjiro with a huge amount of blood and eliminate the source of his PTSD once and for all? Speaking on mental illness, did you know that there's a theory out there suggesting that the reason Hantengu has split personality disorder and says he never committed any crime is because of the big lamp he has on his forehead? You see, if this big lamp is some kind of a tumor or a clamp of cells pressing on his brain, there's a possibility that this causes him to have the mental illness he has. Someone get Hantengu some healthcare, please! Another thing I completely missed while watching the show on regular speed is that if you look closely on the opening of season 3, you can see the scene when Tanjiro is using his flaming sword against Hantengu's emotion clones. What you probably overlooked is the fact that the flames themselves have different colors in the opening and the show. You see, Nezuko's flames are pink, and in the opening the flames are yellow and more realistic. But that's not all. If you look closely on Tanjiro's attack effects, you'll realize that during the sequence itself, the colors of Nezuko and Tanjiro's original flames combine to create a combination between red, yellow, and pink flames. Now here's a detail that I bet most of you haven't noticed. If you go back to the opening of the first season where we see the cool art of all the Hashira striking badass poses, there's something really mind-blowing about this scene. In the opening of episode 2, only Gyu's face is revealed, while the others are just silhouettes. That's because Gyu is the only Hashira we've been introduced to at that point. Things switch up again in episode 20, when Shinobu's face is finally revealed, because we've been introduced to her. And then it happens once more in episode 22, with the face reveal of Gyome, Muichiro, and Mitsuri. By episode 23, we finally get the full lineup of all the Hashira in the opening sequence. But fasten your seatbelts, because the next hidden detail I'm about to reveal would definitely get you saying, oh damn, how'd I miss that? This little gem comes from the opening theme of the Swordsmith Village arc. In this brief scene, you can spot Muichiro duking it out with the Yorichi Type 0 doll. If you slow that scene down, you'll catch a glimpse of his sword getting busted during the fight. Now here's where it gets really wild. Later in the main episodes, we learn that Muichiro's blade was broken during an off-screen training. So with that tiny detail in the opening, we got a sneak peek into how his Nichiren blade actually got shattered. One thing you probably forgot about is that when you look at season 4 and the season 3 opening of the anime, you start to realize that the theory that says the people who face left are the ones who are going to survive and the people who face right are the ones who don't starts to prove itself more and more to the point of being indisputable. Don't you agree? If not, tell us in the comments. And if yes, also tell us in the comments. Although the openings of season 3 and 4 of Demon Slayer were kinda short in my opinion, this next detail you overlooked shows how long Muzan is trying to find the blue spider lily. If you look closer at the book he's writing in, the Upper Moon meeting on the first episode of Demon Slayer, you can see that he tried 133 different flowers to gain the effect of the blue spider lily. Muzan is probably the most patient character in the Demon Slayer series. Speaking about patience, in episode 15 of season 1, Tanjiro and especially Inosuke couldn't wait to enter the forest while Zenitsu refused. We always thought of Zenitsu as a coward for not going on the mountain initially, but because there's a reason behind that even Zenitsu himself doesn't realize at that moment. The thing is, Zenitsu heard the creepy noises from the mountain that Tanjiro and Inosuke could not, as Zenitsu has exceptional hearing abilities and got scared for his life. Imagine sitting at the entrance of a forest and all you can hear is sounds of creepy stuff munching dead bodies of people. You'd be scared too, believe me. Zenitsu also displays this amazing feat at the Entertainment District arc, where with both eyes shut tight, he still jumps into action to fight and shove Tanjiro out of harm's way. It's wild because he's doing all this without even looking. How does he pull off this mind-blowing feat? Well, it's all thanks to his super sharp sense of hearing. Zenitsu can hear every little sound, so even before an explosion goes off, he pinpoints exactly where it's gonna hit. This dude's hearing is so on point that he can navigate and react in the thick of battle just by listening. As amazing as this achievement is, Tengen actually takes it to the next level. Did you know that Tengen can hear people's thoughts? This is one shocking thing I noticed while watching for the 5th time. This scene happens right in the heat of an intense battle at the Entertainment District arc, and if you look really closely, you'll see Tanjiro mentally psyching himself up, thinking no matter how strong they are. Suddenly out of nowhere, Tengen shows up behind him and finishes the thought out loud with, "We'll win." Cause we're Demon Slayer core. Can you believe that? Even Tanjiro is completely jaw-dropped. His face says it all. You can literally see the shock in his eyes, like he's thinking, how in the world did this guy hear my thoughts? I mean, seriously, it's like he's able to listen into Tanjiro's brainwaves or something. Zenitsu is not the only one with amazing hearing. Well, I have some amazing hearing abilities too, and that's why I sat down and counted every time that Daki insulted someone. So, after revealing her demon form in the Entertainment District arc, she insulted people a total of 11 times, and called Zenitsu ugly too. On the other hand, she also stated that she only wanted to capture Inosuke alive because he looked good. Even though she called Zenitsu ugly, we know our boy is beautiful from the inside. We can see this when he cut Daki's belt without hurting anybody, but if you watch closely, he did cut a few people from the waistline. Probably an error in the animation. Another error I found while watching the show on such low speed is this scene.
あの顔知ってる気がするけどわからない
Didn't see it yet? Well, let me help you. In episode 2 of season 3, we see Tanjiro saying that he knows Yoriichi and Muichiro's crow is scolding him, and saying that it's not possible that he knows someone from the Sengoku era. But one of the things that I don't understand is how come no one noticed that Yoriichi Type 0 and Tanjiro are wearing the same earrings? If they know that this doll is a representation of a legendary swordsman, couldn't they have realized that they have some kind of connection? I guess we'll never know. What we do know for a fact though, is that in the last episode of Season 3, Tanjiro awakened one of the most overpowered powers in the show. While chasing Hantengu after he thought Nezuko was being burned alive, he tried to find his main body, and he tried to sniff him so strongly that he started seeing the see-through world just for a few seconds. More than enough to know where he actually is and to cut him. But there's another thing that can only be noticed when you watch the show more than one time, and that is, if you look closely, you can see that the animation style changed when Tanjiro fought Hantengu and cut off his head. You see here, and then here. If you look closely, you can see that in the last scene, Tanjiro looks more cartoonish and less realistic for some reason. Next, we all know that Demon Slayers mention their breathing names when they do it, but when Tengen went underground and cut off the belt, we can see him breathing, but he didn't mention the name. Did you catch this? Because this is a very small detail that's very hard to find. Another detail that's hard to find is when Tanjiro locks all of the Daki's belts in one place with his sword. He locked them with the sharp side facing himself, and when Daki used force, they should have torn down. If we're talking about Daki and Tanjiro's fight, we have to talk about the moment when Daki got PTSD when Tanjiro says, "Why can't you understand?" She sees Yoriichi through the cell's memories because, at that moment, Tanjiro's eyes were also white. Well, if we're talking about Daki's butt kicking, we can't forget the moment when Uzui cut off her head. But the fun fact is that there were 2 humans inside that room along with them, and they could have easily escaped from there, but they didn't. I guess they were also enjoying the fight just like you are enjoying this video. And if we're talking about Daki's head getting cut, let me tell you that Daki got beheaded a total of 4 times. First by Tengen when he arrived at the house where Nezuko kicked her, second also by Tengen when he used his bombs on her, third by Inosuke, and the 4th and final one by the team of Inosuke and Zenitsu. Tengen is flashy, but he's caring too, as he saved Tanjiro 3 times in the fight against Gyutaro. First, when he almost got stabbed by Gyutaro, and fun fact, Tengen threw Tanjiro using 2 fingers only. Second, after Tanjiro saved Hinatsuri, and last when he failed to cut Gyutaro's head and almost got stabbed in the eye, even though he had 1 hand. If we're talking about saving people, we have to talk about the moment when Tanjiro saved Hinatsuri. It took 40 seconds for Tanjiro to reach Gyutaro, and in that moment, he could have easily killed her. There's a possibility that Tanjiro's brain is processing so fast that it looked like 40 seconds, or she just has insane plot armor. Also, if you think about it, Gyutaro insults Tanjiro for 4 whole minutes before offering him to become a demon and getting a headbutt from him. This is probably the longest talk in history. Another cool detail is when Tanjiro, Nezuko, and Muichiro are talking. We can see that Nezuko is copying Muichiro's gestures. We can also see that Muichiro has his sword with him, so he's always ready to fight. This is cool, but do you know who else is cool? In the Upper Moon meeting when Akaza punches Doma, he makes it look effortless. But if we look carefully, we can see his blood demon art traces, which means means he used his strength but just didn't flinch, because he wanted to look cool. Another cool detail is when Doma regenerates his broken face. We can see him regenerate his bones first, then flesh, then skin. This is also the first time we see a demon regenerating this way. Did you realize the metal scraping noise when Tanjiro was trying to cut the 5th demon's neck? This shows how strong that demon's neck was, and without a red sword, it can't be cut. In that same episode, we see Zohakoten for the first time behind Tanjiro. He could have easily killed him, but no, he decided to use his freaking wooden dragons rather than just killing Tanjiro directly. Like, how much plot armor do the main characters have? Another detail that I noticed was about Kyoko's vases. The patterns on the vases match the powers he uses. Speaking of smartness, Muichiro shows a great feat of smartness when he lures Kyoko into close combat. He knew he couldn't fight him head on because of his teleporting from vase to vase. That's why he started insulting his craft and lured him to come fight in close combat. After killing the demon, the scene changes to Tanjiro fighting for his life. So far in the season, he's encountered almost 20 near-death experiences. There's another detail that you might not have noticed. If you listen carefully, Tanjiro says there are 5 wooden dragons, whereas actually, he's fighting only 4 of them, as one of them is there protecting the main body. Moving on to the next scene I watched in slow motion, when the anger clone of Hantengu watched Tanjiro, he reminded